Hey, Bill, the Kansas Flamingo chef, and it's getting chilly outside, so that means it's time to make some chili. So I've won an awful lot of chili competitions over the years, and one of the things I've learned is that there are infinite ways to make chili. I mean, it's pretty much whatever you can imagine and whatever ingredients you want to use. But I want to show you a pretty simple chili recipe that I think most people will enjoy. You can add heat to it if you want it spicier. You can even tone it down by taking away a couple of the things I'm going to use. But if you've never made a pot of chili without just taking it out of a frozen brick or taking it out of a can, this is probably the easiest way to learn it and make a really good chili that people will enjoy. As far as our ingredients, pretty simple. You're going to need some canned tomatoes. I like to use a can of crushed tomatoes and a can of whole peeled tomatoes. I also generally put some tomatoes with green chilies, like Rotel. This happens to be the Kroger knockoff. And I add some corn. The reason you put the corn in the chili is it gives it some fiber and it gives it a little different texture. If you don't want the corn in it, don't put it in it, but I'm telling you, most people like it. You need chili seasoning. This just happens to be just a big thing of chili seasoning. You absolutely need cumin. Chili without cumin just doesn't smell right and it doesn't taste right. I like to add salt and pepper. I also generally add just a little bit of Jamaican jerk because I like that little bite from the allspice. Another real popular spice for chili is tajin. If you've never used this stuff, it's a Mexican spice. It's basically a red pepper and lime spice. It adds a nice flavor. I like to add green chilies to my chili. I don't think chili is chili without chili peppers. And then you need beans. Now, you can use any kind of beans you want. I like the chili base beans, the hot beans, and I also like black beans. Then you need your meat. So I generally use a combination of meats. Depends on what I'm in the mood for. But in this particular chili, I'm going to use a pound of ground pork and about 1.5 pounds of ground beef. Nothing simple, just the cheap stuff. It's chili. We're going to bind it all together. A couple other things you might consider adding just for flavor: V8 juice, beer. I know people who put whiskey in chili. Not a fan. I've seen people put Coca-Cola in chili. You can put just about anything in it. But like I said, I'm going to make this a pretty simple recipe that I think most people will like. So let's get started. Oh, forgot the big ones. You need vegetables. Onions, green onion, bell pepper, and also, I know it sounds weird, but I like a little celery chopped up. So the first thing I'm going to do is chop up a medium-sized onion, a medium-sized bell pepper, a bunch of green onion, and about 2 stalks of celery. Chop that all pretty fine, put it in here and let it start cooking down before we do anything else. Okay, so I've got all my vegetables prepared, and what I've done is I've chopped bell pepper, onion, about 4 stems of green onion, and then 2 stems of celery that I've minced. All of this is going to go into the pot first. I'm going to go ahead and set that on about medium high, and we're going to basically saute these in just a little bit of olive oil. So we're going to go ahead and put a little olive oil in the bottom of the pan, not very much. That's plenty. That's about maybe 1/3 of a teaspoon. And before I start adding the other vegetables, I'm going to put about 3 to 4 cloves of minced garlic in the bottom. Garlic is very important in my chili. All right, then we're just going to go ahead and start adding our chopped vegetables. And we're going to spread that out across the bottom of the pan. And make sure you mix it together because you don't want to burn the garlic or you're going to be starting over. At this point, go ahead and add a little bit of salt and pepper. Don't put your other seasonings in yet. And we'll just let this cook down. Okay, so this has been cooking down for about 9 minutes. And the vegetables are really getting limp and translucent. We've still been stirring it occasionally, but that's all I've been doing, just letting those cook down. They're not quite to the point where you can pinch through them, so they need to cook a little bit more. You want these vegetables just falling apart before you start adding anything else. Otherwise, you're going to have hard chunks of vegetables. In the meantime, I'm getting the meat ready. I've got a pound of pork, and I've got, just over 1.5 pounds of ground beef. So you can hear that really sizzle. We're going to check it again. And there's not much moisture left. Yeah, they're ready. So what we're going to do is bring our heat down just a hair and go ahead and start throwing in beef and pork. We'll go ahead and stir that a little bit and kind of let that meat brown slightly. Don't try to break it up, just move it around. Okay, as the meat starts to brown a little bit, we're going to go ahead and add some of our seasonings. So the first thing I always do is put in chili powder. I'm going to add, that's about 4 tablespoons of chili powder. You're just going to have to trust me on that. I've done it enough times. Mix that together. And then add cumin. Now the thing about cooking chili with cumin is you'll find that you are going to add more cumin as you go to get the right texture, the right smell, the right flavor. I've added probably about 2 tablespoons of cumin just now, and more likely than not, I'll add some more later. We'll let this cook down a little bit. We'll go ahead and add a couple other spices, about a teaspoon of tahini, and I also add just a hint of cinnamon. So about a teaspoon of tahini, just a dash of cinnamon, and maybe about a teaspoon of the jerk seasoning. And we'll let those seasonings cook into the meat before we start adding anything else, because I want the meat to be almost completely done cooking before I start adding liquid. At this point, the meat is done cooking. It's been, probably about another 10 minutes, give or take. And I just kept mixing it around every so often. And you can see that it's pretty well crumbled up in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a can of green chilies. If you want this a little more spicy, add chopped jalapenos instead of green chilies, or you can add both. I like the green chili. Next we're going to add a can of black beans. Mix those in. Now when you're adding beans, you're going to look at your consistency before you start adding tomatoes and see, are there enough beans in there? Do I want more beans? If you don't like beans at all, don't put any in, but I don't recommend that. We're also going to add chili beans. So they make chili beans in hot and mild. I like the hot. You can also just buy red kidney beans and put those in, or red beans. Now I like a lot of beans in chili, so I'm going to add a second can of these chili beans. Now for some people, they don't even add tomatoes, and that's fine, but to me it's not chili without tomatoes. So this particular type of tomato actually comes in with tomato paste, because it's Italian tomatoes. I like them this way. That way you don't have a whole bunch of tomato juice going in there. And I just kind of break these tomatoes up in there a little bit. Mix it around. Just going to add the diced tomatoes with the chilies. And I just pour that in there with the juice. At this point, if you want more tomato, that's why you've got the crushed tomatoes standing by. But before you do that, taste it. See what the flavor's like and see if you really want more tomato flavor or not. For tomato, I'm going to add some of the crushed tomatoes, not all of it. Reserve the rest to the side so I can decide if I need more. I don't want this soupy. Next, I'm going to add some corn. And I'm going to use about a half a can. That's probably enough, because it's really more color and texture than it is anything else. All right, at this point, the chili is really ready to stew down for a while. All you need to do is turn your heat down to low, cover this, and let it simmer. I do recommend before you do that to taste it and see if you want to add any more spices. If you need some more salt, if you need more pepper, cumin, all of that, this is when you're going to do that. Now that I've got my flavor profile the way I want it, this is when, if you want to add heat, you're going to do that. So what I'm going to add to mine today is a couple shots of Tabasco and then some cayenne pepper. One of the reasons you want to reserve some of the crushed tomatoes is if it winds up after you let it stew for a while that's just too hot, you put some crushed tomatoes in it or even some sour cream, which I'll do later, to bring that heat balance down a little bit. At this point, we're going to cover this. We're going to let it turn the heat all the way down to low to simmer and just let it do its thing for the next 2 to 3 hours. Okay, so this has been simmering for just about an hour. I'm going to drop a big dollop of sour cream in there. And about a handful of shredded cheddar and jack cheese. And stir that in, let that cheese melt down, and let it cook for about another hour. The chili's been simmering for 2 hours. It's ready to eat. You can see it's forming some cheese grease here on top. We're just going to stir it real quick so you can see what it looks like. And then I'm going to put a little bit in this bowl. There it is. I promise you, it's good. Now, if you want it spicier, you can always add heat. I tried to keep it kind of mild today for the people I'm going to serve it to, but this is a pretty simple recipe that I think anybody can follow. As always, like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you'd like me to cook. Have a great day.